Auburn Tigers do not want to be win number 315.
White only takes about a 5-yard walk up. There's the whistle by referee Harper. The kick is in the air, going to Lenny Patrick at the 3-yard line.
That's it. They come out of the double wing formation. Foley has Jones to the left. He's looking. He wants to play. Pitches it to Bendros. Bendros to the 20. Within. 5. Touchdown. The whooping pass to Jesse Bendros. Jones will go over. Look for it. He takes it down to zone 42. Fumbles the football. They're diving for it. They're knocking the ball over into the 5-yard line to the 2. And it's recovered by Auburn at the 2-yard line. There's the snap. The ball is placed down. The kick is good. Auburn has taken the lead 17-14 over Alabama with 12 minutes 58 seconds left in this football game. Walter Lewis pitches to Patrick. Patrick takes the tackle. 45. Still on his feet. Standing Patrick at the 30. Still on his feet. And on fourth and one. First down at the 38.5-yard line in Tiger territory. Walter Lewis is the quarterback, calls his count. Wide out, left and right, full house ball behind Walter. He comes back, looks, he pumps. He's throwing to Bendros. Touchdown, Alabama! Coach Paul Bryant ends number 315.
In the 1970s, Alabama football enjoyed a period of dominance that brought to mind the golden decade of the 60s and names like Namath, Stabler, Jordan, and Perkins. The common thread through both eras, of course, was the Crimson Tide's legendary general, Paul Bear Bryant. The Tide would claim national championships in 73, 78, 79, and came close in 77. With the decade coming to a close, the great coach sought out players who'd carry the winning tradition into the 1980s. His search led him to Bruton, Alabama, and a young man named Walter Lewis.
Life in Bruton when I was growing up was a fun time for me. My neighborhood's a little bit different now, but my parents created an environment, that was beneficial for me.
I think it was a nice place to live, and it's small. You just about knew everybody that was in business, and you could go buy or get anything you wanted. All you had to say, charge it, and that was it.
Both his mom and dad, just wonderful people. Wonderful people. And Miss Jewel, Walter's mother, was, known throughout town. She'd nurse at the hospital. So everybody knew Miss Jewel. But they're just the type of people that you hope you'll grow up to be as an adult, as far as parents.
My favorite sports figure growing up at the time when I was young was Jim Brown. I mean, he was a great running back, and I really admired him as a player, just in his abilities. I watched him, and I made comments later on. I said, I'm going to be just like Jim Brown.
He said, come here, Mama. He said, sit right here by me. He said, I'm going to show you something and tell you something. I said, okay. So I come in and I sit right by him. He said, I'm going to show you all the signs that these coaches going to give. He said, because one day I'm going to be on TV.
From my standpoint, I just enjoy getting out there playing. I enjoy watching. I just enjoy it, that aspect of life.
And he began to participate in Pee Wee football, baseball, and all the sports.
That age, you just try to get 11 people doing what they're supposed to do, and 10 of them you had to get on probably, but not Walter. You could tell him something one time, and that was it.
And I never set aside time just to think that, hey, I had athletic ability. I just, for the most part, when I go out and participate in whatever sport it was, that I gave it everything I had. And then you had great coaches around from Little League on that, that's what they stressed as well.
At the turn of 8, that's when he entered in the punt, pass, and kick.
I never thought it would evolve. Never had a clue. I was just in it. I was asked to participate. Dan McMillan and Ed McMillan, that family, they were friends of my family. And they came to my house and said, well, why don't you enter? So they actually took me down to the Ford place to actually sign the entry form. And the competition would be the next day. I won at the age of 8, and it was judged on accuracy and distance and all those things. I went to the next level, which was in Montgomery, and then after winning the 5th stage, I was invited to compete at the Pro Bowl, to where I was competing against a guy that was probably 6 foot, 8-year-old 6 foot guy. I mean, he had a deep voice, and he was tall. I was a little short guy. Won the championship there. Flying back, it was very interesting. We were on the airplane, we landed. So I was one of the first ones to get off. When I got off, you had Southern Normal Band, which is a private school here at the time. You had T.R. Miller High School Band, W.S. Neal's band. You had everybody from my hometown, at the airport.
We were just in awe of a kid from this little town, in a setting like that. But that just proved to me some of the stuff that I knew he had in him.
Coming back to school that day, the first day back after he won it, it was like a celebrity came back in town. I mean, Bruton being a small town, first of all, and then to have somebody appear in that venue and that national stage, it was real exciting.
I received letters from Ara Parsegian at Notre Dame. I received letters from Coach Bryant, congratulating me on, that achievement or what have you. And I don't know if that was a recruiting process. I'm sure just looking at how recruiters work nowadays, that probably would have been PR for later on down the road if something would have materialized as a pretty good athlete.
As Lewis passed through grade school and his athletic skills evolved, there was little doubt he'd eventually pilot the offense at T.R. Miller.
This school here has had a lot of tradition when it comes to athletics, especially football.
His dad kind of was hesitant in letting him play that age, but he started and played for us as a 7th grader in junior high football. He caught on very well, and he threw the ball well, and he had such quick feet and hands, and he had some pretty good talent around him. One thing I remember from that time is I had to talk his dad into kind of letting him play and assure him we were going to watch out for him as young as he was. He wasn't very big. But we went in the gym one day when it was raining, and I let them take their helmets off and running through some plays, and the kid caught his shoulder pad in his lip and busted it up pretty good on about the first 2 or 3 days of practice, so that didn't go over very well with his dad.
This is how he did for us in high school. He kicked off. Here he is, he's our starting quarterback. He kicks for us. Well, our big deal was, Walter, kick the ball down there, play safety, stay out of the way, we'll make the tackle. Never. He kicked the ball off. He goes down there, he blows them up. That's just the way he was. He was full bore from the time he got here until the time he left.
We was down at Atmore one night. I think it was like a bootleg. He run around the end and kind of faked off a bunch of guys, and he was standing up in the end zone with the football, but the referees called the play dead because he actually faked them all off.
He could have done anything he wanted to do. He was just a natural, gifted athlete. He could run, he could throw, he could catch, he could do it all. It was just that it was the best fit for him and the talent that we had. We had a good running back, had a good receiver, had a good linebacker. It's like, okay, where can we put this person who has them all? Let's put him in the most pivotal position to allow him to utilize all of his talents.
The talent that Walter had and Walter Broughton had, it just really made the other kids work a little bit harder. But I guess the big thing that I can remember about those 2 young gentlemen is that they brought every day, whether it's at school or on the athletic field, a lot of leadership. And they just made other folks play harder, work harder, and do the right things.
The exploits of Walter Lewis didn't escape the notice of recruiters. College programs from around the Southeast began to make their presence known in Bruton. Lewis himself became a coveted prize in the recruiting battle between Alabama and Auburn.
It was actually an issue that pretty much consumed the whole town because, growing up, everybody knew from the first time he stepped on the football field, he's going to be the quarterback at T.R. Miller. And anybody that knew anything about football knew that once he finished at T.R. Miller, he's going to play at the college level. So it was a big decision.
There was a lot of coaches after Walter Lewis, and I think that Walter handled it greatly because for the pressure that you have to go through in that ordeal it is, and I don't remember any of the coaching staff trying to get involved in that decision making. It was strictly for Walter to make it, and I think that's where it should have come from, Walter making it.
I think that the school that recruited me the hardest at the time was Auburn. Doug Barfield was the head coach there at the time. They started on me early. If the recruiting process had gone the way it was going with Auburn, I probably would have gone to Auburn.
I asked a couple of guys, Alabama guys, you know, and nobody seemed to know much about what was going on with the recruiting. So before I went to bed, I sat down and wrote Coach Bryant a letter. I remember very vividly the last thing I said to him was, Coach, if he doesn't play a down for you, he's worth a scholarship to have in the dormitory to influence the other players. I said, he's got character, and you just can't get that every day. But on top of that, he was the best athlete that I'd ever seen come through T.R. Miller, and I'd seen a lot of them. 2 days later, 48 hours, my nurse came in there and said, there's some fella in there named Paul Bryant wants you on the phone. And I answered the telephone, and Coach Bryant said, Dr. Hayes, there'll be a new recruiter in your office in the morning. He said, would you talk to him and tell him the things you told me in that letter?
I think we both respectively were being recruited by several universities, you know, University of Alabama, Auburn, some of the schools in Mississippi as well, and in Florida. I think for Walter it's a little bit more intense because of the magnitude of what he's getting ready to do as an African-American quarterback in the state of Alabama.
My parents actually had reservations, and the reservations were, you know, with all that had gone on in the 60s to 50s in terms of the black-white relationships. Hey, you know, my parents went through George Wallace standing in the door talking about blacks, you know, not coming to the University of Alabama. All these things were stigmas in the minds of a parent at that particular point in time.
I felt good when Coach Bryant come here. He knocked on the door and he come in. He says, pull off his hat. He said, I'm Coach Paul Bear Bryant. Yes, sir. I said, come in, have a seat. He come in and he sit down. And he started talking to me. He says, you know why I'm here, don't you? I said, well, I think so. He said, I'm here tonight. I'm looking for Walter.
He came down and he said, hey, haven't you always dreamed of playing in that red jersey? I told him no. I said, I've always dreamed of playing for the Buffalo Bills or somebody like the Miami Dolphins. Well, I never dreamed of playing in the red jersey.
I said, he can go anywhere he want to. It's all right with me. But I want him to play ball wherever he go. I said, I don't want you to come here and recruit him and take him and sit him on the bench to keep somebody else from getting him that would let him play. I said, if you're not gonna let him play, don't you let him go to your school.
Coach Bryant, you know, who didn't start playing a black player until the early 70s. You know, and then here it is, you putting a guy in a position where he's going to participate on the upper echelon of the totem pole, being the actual signal caller out there. Those were things I would imagine that were affecting my parents regarding the decision to actually go to the University of Alabama.
To me, he was a fair man. He said, if he can play, I'll play him.
And I prayed from that summer. I mean, I prayed consistently all through the summer months, all through the season about what to do.
And I know that he got a lot of negative and positive influence from a lot of different people on, you know, hey, Walter, you ought to sign here. Hey, Walter, you ought to do this. You know, this is the best thing for you. This will be the best thing for you long term, or whatever. But, you know, at the end of the day, that's a decision as a 17, 18-year-old he had to make.
I said, listen, let me tell you something. I said, I don't know how long he'll live. I said, but whenever he dies, it's going to be history forever behind him. I said, then if you go to Alabama, you be part of that history.
Paul Bryant's road to coaching immortality was marked with success at almost every turn. The Bear transformed programs at Maryland, Kentucky, and Texas A&M into winners before performing his greatest work at his alma mater. In 25 years at Alabama, Bryant led teams to 6 national championships and 13 conference titles, was National Coach of the Year 3 times, while winning the honor in the SEC 8 times. His success made clear he was the best the college game had ever seen. Now all he needed was the win total to confirm it. Thus began the public obsession with 315.
Alabama at that time was a state in turmoil. As far as the rest of the country was concerned. And indeed it was. And they had very few things they could hang their hat on and brag about, but Alabama football they could. And Coach Bryant gave them that opportunity because he was just the greatest to come along in that field.
To go to different schools like that, universities that were all down at the time, and that is, unbelievable consistency on his part. And then to win at Alabama for 25 years, to win at the level that we won, is quite remarkable in a very, very tough league.
And he had enough insight that he knew how to push time-wise on the field, how to pull back, reduce the time on the field, to make sure we had legs for Saturday. He had insight of being able to do that better than anybody I've ever seen. I've been with other coaches, they didn't have a clue compared to what he did. He had more feel of being a perfectionist than any coach I've ever seen.
Coach Bryant was a practice coach. He was a teacher. He taught his coaches and demanded his coaches, and then he demanded his players. I mean, that was his, and it worked.
Was he a real easy guy to work for? Not really. Did he demand that you do your job? He really did. Were the coaches, I'm not saying that the coaches were afraid of him, but I'll say this, we knew where he was. We knew where he's up on the tower, or down on the field, or in his office, or in his car. And we just sort of knew where Coach Bryant was.
It wasn't that Coach Bryant had to have his way. He taught all of us to do it one way. That's why we won.
Alabama won back-to-back national championships in 1978 and 79. In 1980, Walter Lewis joined the team as a freshman. The young man who would eventually become Bear Bryant's last starting quarterback wasted no time making an impact.
When I got to the University of Alabama the first week, it was made clear to me why I was there. One of the guys that was recruited along with me went to play linebacker there. He was from Huntsville. The first week, man, it was tough. First week, we come home from practice, all his stuff laying out in the hallway. He's getting ready to leave. And I told him, I said, man, you're not leaving. I said, we came in here together, and we're going to leave together. You get your stuff, and you put it back in the closet. He did it, and we graduated together.
Being a black quarterback and, one of the earlier ones to play that position there, he was a leader. Quarterback has to be a leader, but off the field, Walter Lewis was a leader.
Number one, he's probably one of the best all-around quarterbacks that's ever played there. I mean, to be able to run as well as he could run and throw as well as he could throw, you don't find that very often. You usually find a guy that's a 80% thrower, 20% runner, or 80% runner, 20% thrower. And when you're like he was, he could actually do both very well.
There were times where it was tough, where I didn't want to go to practice. I got cursed, I got fussed at, I got my face mask pulled on. I got talked about in front of the team and stuff, but my response to that was a smile. And when I get in the huddle and call the play, to the players, I smile as well.
Coach Bryant was interested in taking 18-year-old boys and turning them into 22-year-old men. And in that process, I didn't understand it my first couple of years. I never had to work like this. It just was at another level, just the discipline, the demand for excellence, the demand. Your coaches, it was driven. You were driven.
Walter Lewis from Bruton is the quarterback. 1st and 10 for the Tide. Lewis fakes inside, drops. He wants to throw. He's got some time. He throws to Joey Jones. It is completed.
This is my sophomore year, and I played 5 plays. I'm the number 2 quarterback. I remember sprinting out, throw a pass. I got sacked. I didn't play no more. This is the first of the game. I didn't play any more. I went into Coach Moore trying to justify why I didn't play more. But in my own mind, I knew why I didn't play. And it's because there was some fear there. And Coach Bryant said, hey, I mean, he knew in his own way how to deal with that.
He always substituted the players. No assistant coach sent players in as a quick way to get fired. The players knew he was the guy they had to please to get on the field. And that was his power over them. But Coach Bryant did all of this, with every position, not just quarterbacks, because he was always building depth, particularly early in this season. He was building experience to win in November. He was building the team to win next year.
If I hadn't gone through those trials that I experienced under him during that particular point in time, the pressure of the 315, probably been difficult to handle.
The year was 1981. Bryant's 24th as the head football coach at Alabama, and like most of them, a season filled with lofty expectations. As always, there was the pursuit of the national and SEC championships, but this was the season in which many believed Bryant would pass Amos Alonzo Stagg as college football's all-time winningest coach.
That 81 team had a lot of talent on it. If everything went the way it should have, he had an opportunity to win a national championship with that particular team. There's a lot of talent there to be able to do that. The focus, though, was this was the year that Coach Bryant could potentially break the record. In fact, we had to win the majority of the games because the record actually came at the Auburn game, which was the last game of the season.
As the season wore on, and I think Coach Bryant wanted it to get over with, because, not the season, but that chase, because it was distracting. It was becoming very distracting.
I think he was low-key about it and really didn't want to talk about it. I think Charlie Thornton, our sports publicity guy, getting out some news and this kind of releases and this and that, and it didn't really bother Coach Bryant because he didn't want to feel like, well, Bryant did it or something. He wanted Alabama and 11 football players did it.
He really played it down, and of course the media would not leave him alone. Coach Bryant, when you're going to set the record, you're going to be able to do it this year, and he did a good job of not putting that extra pressure on his team.
Whenever he talked to us after practice, it was all about the team, and our success was nothing about him.
We knew that if we did what we needed to do based on practice and how we went about it, then that was a given. It was going to happen.
Before anyone could give serious consideration to 315, Alabama would have to do its job between the lines. The season began well enough with a nighttime nationally televised battle against LSU. The Tide passed only 4 times, completing all 4, but 294 yards rushing combined with 3 Tiger turnovers gave Alabama all they needed for a 24-7 victory. In Week 2, Alabama returned to Legion Field to face struggling Georgia Tech. The Tide dominated statistically, but coughed up 3 turnovers. 10 fourth-quarter points gave Bill Curry's Yellow Jackets a surprising 24-21 win, their only win of the season, and sent Alabama reeling heading into a 3-game SEC stretch.
We had Georgia Tech, but we let the game slip away. And they shocked us, actually. That was what's called a wake-up call.
So that kind of got our attention. I think that helped us more than hurt us. And that got us together as a group. We're thinking, hey, that's about all we can stand this year. We got together and said, look, we're going to set this record for Coach Bryant this year. We knew it could happen at the end of the season. So I think the loss early in the season at Georgia Tech even brought us closer together as a unit.
Alabama rebounded with wins against Kentucky and Vanderbilt, but the program was rocked by an Atlanta Journal-Constitution article alleging morale and discipline issues in the Crimson Tide locker room. Running back Lenny Patrick, once considered by many the top recruit in the nation, was suspended during this time for violating team rules. Patrick's difficulties were the latest in a series of issues that marked his career at the University of Alabama and prevented him from reaching his full potential on the field.
Lenny Patrick, to me, was the most talented running back we had. It's just that Bear Bryant, if he can't break you and get you on his discipline, you're going to have a, tough. But Lenny was good running back.
I think everyone looked at Lenny as being a prima donna. And I think Lenny looked at himself being a prima donna as well.
Came in like God had gave me a gift, and I really didn't need coaching. That's the way I thought.
Great guy. I mean, he kept stuff going, but he would always manage to get in Coach Bryant's doghouse, get out of his graces in some type of way.
I was our character. I kept practice going. You got to have somebody out there to do that, so just make it fun.
In a way, we was kind of hard-headed and, young, and when you were like a superstar in high school, you get away, you don't train right. He break that away from you. He makes you turn around and say, look, I'm the coach. You're going to do what I tell you to do, and he's going to make you respect him. And he took that egotistic, self-centered person away from, out of us and made us as a group.
If you didn't embrace it, well, it was already hard enough as it was. If you didn't embrace it, then you created problems for yourself. And that's what I saw with Lenny. He was rejecting the discipline and training that, everybody was going through. And bottom line was Coach Bryant was trying to make you a better person.
Alabama responded by doing what Bryant coached teams had always done: win. With precise execution, the Crimson Tide rolled over Ole Miss 38-7, inching their way closer to 315. Alabama now owned a 4-1 record, welcoming standout quarterback Reggie Collier and his Southern Miss teammates to Legion Field. Collier and wideout Lewis Lips led a balanced attack that generated more than 300 yards of offense against the Tide. 10 fourth-quarter points, including a 40-yard field goal to close the game out, gave the Golden Eagles a 13-all tie. With the tie and the loss coming against non-conference foes, Alabama's hopes for an SEC title remained intact.
Most of the players came to the University of Alabama to win a national championship and to be a part of a program that had tradition as winning. And that's what they expected of themselves, as opposed to, focusing on losing the Tech, tying Southern Miss. But the focus was getting back on track to be a winner.
Every opponent that Alabama played now was saying, well, I'm not going to be the one. We're going to play harder.
At that time in Alabama history, you're a marked team. You're the team to beat. And every week we had the same speech. That team down there wants to beat you more than anybody else on their schedule.
We got caught sleeping and got caught half sleeping, and it shows, but hey, a good team can always rebound.
And we were just kind of trying to play for the SEC championship and hoping to have a chance to play in a big bowl game.
With 5 games remaining, 4 wins needed to tie Staggs' record and the SEC title at stake, Bama dug in its heels and went to work. Next, Johnny Majors and the Tennessee Vols in Birmingham. Alabama wasted no time dispatching its opponent. Joe Carter's 97 yards rushing, highlighting a 500-yard offensive performance. The Tide defense held the Vols to only 85 yards on the ground en route to a 38-19 win. The following week, the Tide hosted Rutgers for homecoming. A dominant performance on both sides of the ball gave the Tide a one-sided win against the Scarlet Knights. Alabama returned to conference play against Mississippi State in Tuscaloosa. The Tide fumbled the ball a remarkable 7 times against the Bulldogs, but a second-half shutout by the defense kept the Tide in the ball game. A 13-10 win elevated Bryant's win total to 313. An open week gave Alabama time to prepare for Joe Paterno and 4th-ranked Penn State.
The fans there were outstanding. It was like we were there to compete, but at the same time, we were there to be honored as well. And they looked at this as an opportunity here, that's an opportunity of a lifetime. If we won the game, they were there to win. But if we won the game, we would have tied the record.
When we got to the airport, there was more Penn State fans there than Bama. Then when we got to the stadium to play the next day, it was like they had made a wall of people all the way from our dressing room all the way to the field. You never seen anything like it.
The fans would be following them and patting them on the back, and here they are, the enemy. They loved them. And that's what got Coach Bryant's attention and appreciation for their football so much.
By the time the Crimson Tide arrived in State College, Bryant had his squad in the right frame of mind. Alabama played its best game of the season, generating almost 500 yards of offense and delivering a defensive performance that earned the respect of its legendary coach.
And they beat Penn State pretty good, but I remember one series of downs that Penn State had the ball inside the 5-yard line.
Our defense just came together. Wilcox, we had some great leaders, Jackie Klein, Warren Lyles, and Castile, and Jim Bob. We just got together and said, look, they're not getting in. This is the Sugar Bowl all over again.
They had 7 plays inside the 5 against us, and we stopped them. And, you know, Coach Bryant came out and tipped his hat, took his hat off to us.
And I think that's the only time they said in the history of Alabama football, Coach Bryant ever walked out on the field after that, tipped his hat to the defense.
Slowly applauding them as they came by because they had really done something.
The coaching record now belonged to 2 men. With one more victory, Coach Bryant would stand alone as college football's all-time best. Alabama's first shot at 315 would come November 28, 1981. Arch rivals Alabama and Auburn at Legion Field. Bryant against its former assistant, Pat Dye. A national audience watching. The stage was set.
Coach Bryant told us the beginning of the week at our first meeting to, win the ball game for yourselves, win it for your fans, win it for your family. Don't go out there and try to win the ball game for me. Just do your best and show your class, and it was just classic Coach Bryant getting you ready to play a football game. Trust me, when you're close to the end, man, the Bears like legend. When you get there, he ain't got to say nothing to you.
With media and people making it a big deal in breaking that record, he knew how to stay focused on what's the task at hand. Well, the task at hand is you got to beat them boys that's down on the plains. That's just bottom line on it.
To me, it was just Auburn. I mean, Auburn is enough to get you ready. And the 315 victory was just basically the icing on the cake if it were to transpire and happen. I mean, the tension that builds up to play Auburn, that's tension that doesn't start the week of the game. That's tension that started way back the last game you played. And it's just a constant building all the way up until that game.
You could feel it. You could cut the tension in the locker room all week long. You could just, as it got a little closer to Saturday, you could just feel the hair coming up on your neck and the adrenaline flow. And of course, that was Auburn anyway, but to actually have the chance to set the record against them was, and it was in our minds, even though we weren't allowed to kind of talk about it and Coach Bryant played it down. You can bet that was the talk amongst the players.
Coach Paul Bear Bryant has a commanding edge over Auburn since he has been to Alabama in 1958. He has lost only 5, and Auburn certainly would like to change that. And as I mentioned earlier, these Auburn Tigers do not want to be win number 315.
We'd been on national television before, but that was a different stage for us, and everything was pinpointed toward Coach Bryant.
Everywhere he went, there was a crowd of people around him. It was a little different atmosphere.
Just to run out on that field in that Alabama jersey is one thing, but to do it at Legion Field in front of 80 or 85,000 screaming fans and against Auburn, the record at stake, you can't imagine what was going through our minds. And I know I was ready to run through a brick wall.
The Auburn team that took the field in 1981 had been crafted in the image of its cross-state opponent. The Tigers operated from the wishbone formation that Alabama had used to perfection and attacked the 4th-ranked Crimson Tide with quick, hard-hitting defense.
I knew that Coach Dye was a great coach and a great motivator, and what I'd always heard of his mental toughness. The kids were going to play hard, and they did. They played their guts out, and plus it was Alabama-Auburn game. You're not going to, those games are always going to come down to, one play or 2 plays.
Auburn really played us, if I remember it right, very tough that game. Very physical football team with a great line, huge tight end, and some tremendous running backs.
I really believe they had a good plan against us, and they had a 260-pound fullback. I remember leading up in there, and they ran the wishbone, and we ran the wishbone. So it was a tough game.
The scheme was perfect in terms of what we were trying to do. I mean, Coach Moore, my hats are off to he and that staff. They came up with some ideas in terms of how we could just exploit and utilize the talent. You got a running quarterback that can throw, and you got the running backs that can run, and you can power, and you got wide receivers that can get out there and make stuff happen that people can't stay with. You know, I mean, it was a perfect combination.
And when you run the wishbone, you need to play a couple of three quarterbacks because it's a dangerous type offense because they get hit so much. You would start Alan Gray in the game and then come with Walter later. Because a lot of times when you get in an opening game, you don't know what the opponents, how they're going to try to defend you. And we get our beads on it, get our side on it, then we try to win the game with Walter.
Quarterback Alan Gray broke through on a first quarter option, carrying the ball 63 yards to the Auburn 21. Several plays later, Gray broke the plane of the goal line. Peter Kim's extra point giving Alabama a 7-0 lead. The Tigers tied it up in the second quarter on a 63-yard run by George Peoples, who'd finished the day with 155 yards. But Auburn would be its own worst enemy in the first half, missing 2 field goals, mishandling the snap on a third, and throwing an interception into the end zone. The Tigers outgained the Tide 200 yards to 86, but had little to show for it. The team settled in at the half, tied at 7-all.
They weren't real fancy. They just tried to take it to us and did a dang good job in the first half, and we just had to bow up and toughen up.
I just remember it was a positive atmosphere. I can't remember what was said. I just remember walking in thinking, we got a chance to win this game if we just go out there and play.
It wasn't anything negative or any fire-up talk. He said, hey, I mean, you're going to see what you're made of now. You know, what's on the inside. How you going to respond to this? You got to determine that.
I think we played harder. If you watch that game, I think you'd see us playing hard as the game went on.
Alabama entered the second half ready to correct its first half mistakes. Quarterback Ken Coley took over the Alabama offense, beginning the first drive of the third quarter at the Tide's own 45-yard line and ending with a shovel pass to Jesse Bendros, who followed his blocking all the way to a 26-yard score, giving Bama the lead 14-7.
We ran that from an unbalanced line and had Jesse lined up at the right tackle. And Joey was out wide.
Well, when I lined up there, the guy on Auburn, the defensive back said, number 88, Vendros is right there. He's on the line. They finna do that play. I said, oh, God, they gonna kill me.
The play was blocked as perfect as any play I've ever seen. Ken Coley did a great job on this flow and sprint. He drew the guy up the field and pitched under him.
And believe it or not, I almost dropped the ball. I bobbled it. Well, I would have dropped the Bear Bryant, would have killed me, but I was coming in. I remember Joey made one for him. I'm being extra on that play. He blocked one of the cornerback. He knocked him on his butt.
It was a huge play in that game.
Coley has Jones to the left. He comes out. He's looking. He wants to play. Pitches it to Bendros. Bendros to the 20, to the 15, 10, 5, touchdown. The whoopee pass to Jesse Bendros.
Auburn's offense misfired on its next possession, but a rare drop punt by returner Joey Jones gave the Tigers the ball at the Tide's 2-yard line. Auburn would not be denied. Lionel James took a pitch and dove in for 6. Al Del Greco's extra point tying the score at 14. A series of miscues followed. Alabama's Benny Perrin with an interception, a fumble by the Tide's Mickey Ginyard on offense, and a second uncharacteristic drop on a punt return by Jones. The fourth quarter began with Auburn driving and eventually taking the lead on a Del Greco field goal. Only 13 minutes remained. Auburn leading 17-14.
But in this particular game, when Joey miscued on the returns, I mean, that's totally out of character of Joey. And when that happened, I'm like, okay, this is Auburn. This is Alabama and Auburn. And there are things that go on in this game that, hey, you have to overcome. Because what you suspect to happen generally does not happen. You have to expect the unexpected and you never be surprised. Coach Bryant talked about that all the time.
With the ball resting on the Alabama 25 and 3:15 at stake, Coach Bryant placed his offense in the hands of Walter Lewis. Alabama responded well, moving the chains down the field. The Auburn defense stiffened, but a third down holding penalty gave Alabama new life, and that's all they needed. On 1st and 10, Alabama would carry its coach to the mountaintop.
We were trying to establish a run, being in the wishbone attack. and also set up an opportunity for pass. And I remember very vividly a sense of urgency during that time, and the knowing that we had to make the play.
And all during the game, we was running a play called Z out. Oh, yeah, and they was ready for that. They had a linebacker in front of us. When we get in the cornerbacks, we were doing Z out, about 25, 30 yards out. And every time he be breaking. And I remember I said, Coach Mel, they breaking on the Z out. Let's run the Z in.
We had situations to where we would take the real tight end out and we would squeeze a receiver in. And Jesse had a frame where you couldn't really notice that.
We hit Jesse on a post pattern we called a Z in, Z out on one side where Joey would pick up the safety, break Jesse on the backside so there was nobody in the hole.
And one of the things that in the wishbone, you have to make run look like pass all the time. And in that particular play, I remember, the mechanics of, reading the defensive end, pulling the ball, coming down the line of scrimmage, making it look like run, and then stepping off the line of scrimmage to throw the pass. Make this, sell it, make it look just like the run. And, head down, you're not looking downfield, you're going through your mechanics and you're bouncing, you're coming off the line of scrimmage, you throw. We ran that and Auburn bit. They bit big time.
I looked at him, and the linebacker was right in front of me. I said, sucker, I'm going to get you this round. And the DB, he was sitting on the outside waiting on me. I said, okay. He right in position. I got past the linebacker, and I forgot this guy's name. But he knew I was coming for the Z out. I went this way. He took out to the out. And in my mind, I said, see you, sucker. Hit back inside. I was wide open.
And I'm thinking, you got to put this one on the money, because if you don't, there's another opportunity taken away. And I was very fortunate, to be able to place the ball in a manner where he can make the catch.
Walter hit me dead in stride. I got a little cocky, too. I could see that I was going to walk winding up, but, hey, I knew it was a big game. I was feeling good then. I was rolling. That was my second touchdown. And we called a perfect play on that one.
Walter Lewis, wide outs left and right, full house bone behind Walter. He comes back, looks, he pumps, he is throwing to Bendros. Touchdown, Alabama! Jesse Bendros, split the middle, defeating Mark Dominey, taking it downfield on a perfect strike, 38 yards from Walter Lewis to Jesse Bendros, and Alabama recaptures the lead with 10:07 left in this football game.
Auburn got the ball back but failed to produce a score. Enter Lenny Patrick, who, despite playing most of the game, had only carried the ball 2 times for no yards. Given an opportunity to put the game on ice, Patrick gave Alabama fans an effort for the ages.
Lenny, I think, was as fine a running back as we've had here. He was not real big, but he had unbelievable natural strength.
Wasn't a big guy, but you had to tackle him, hit him, and bring him down. He had tremendous balance. You just didn't knock him down. And Lenny just had what they call that knack of finding an opening.
Walter Lewis pitches to Patrick. Patrick breaks the tackle at the 45. Still on his feet. Lenny Patrick at the 30. Still on his feet. Everyone milks and run as Lenny Patrick takes it down to a 16-yard line.
I just started going around the right end. Time I got the ball, it was people grabbing at me. And I just started using, I guess, my ability that God gave me at that point. Because when you're running out there like that, you can't really remember everything that's happening. I don't remember about them guys grabbing at me. The only thing out that play that I do remember real good was when I was trying to go down the field sideways. So I didn't want to go down.
The spring before that year of the 315, Coach Bryant had gotten fed up with some of the things that were going on, and he actually, when we would practice at Alabama, it was a constant reminder that Coach Bryant was standing in that tower watching down on us. And we would constantly look back and forth to see if he was up there looking at us or not. And that particular spring, we looked up and he wasn't there, and we like, uh-oh, we're on the field, where is he?
In my mind, it was like I had ran 100 plays, okay? I had been with 3 offensive linemen, whole unit, quarterbacks and all. I had probably ran the ball, I don't know, man, hundreds of times, up and down the field. Everybody knew I was kind of exhausted, but I was still going and going. It got to the point where Coach Bryant seen it. He told me I can have a break, okay? So I was running off to the sideline. By the time I was getting ready to step out of bounds, Coach Bryant said, get back in the game. And Coach Rutledge said, I threw my helmet, but I just dropped my helmet. My arms down like this, and And the next thing I heard, now, which at that point, I knew he had got kind of teed, so I was getting ready to go back in, but it was too late.
But he got to Lenny and he shook him, actually, during practice. Everybody was quiet. He ran the sweep, and I was a quarterback in at that time. And Coach Bryant told Mal, said, Mal, run him again. The defense guy, they knew where the play was going. And, man, they were saying, come on, Lenny. And, man, they hit Lenny, and they hit him hard. I mean, it was an indefinite gut check for Lenny. Coach Bryant said, run him again, Mal. Ran the same play. It was a humbling situation, not for just Lenny, but us watching.
I had ran, but I hate it to this day that I didn't just go back in there and do it because I could have. It wasn't hurting me at all.
And at that point, Coach Bryant went to Jack Rutledge and said, Jack, get him out of the dorm.
Yeah, as a young kid, and you come out of high school, #1 player in the nation, sometimes, you seem to lose reality. So he brought me back down. Yeah.
That run, that sweep that Coach Bryant ran him on 4 times, that's the same play that transpired in this game. And to see Lenny redeem himself with that effort and to make that outstanding run, man, my hat went off to him.
Just to see Coach Bryant bring him back on the team, let him be a part of really making history, and he really came through at a time when the team needed him.
Patrick's run exhausted any remaining hope Auburn may have had of delaying Coach Bryant's coronation. To be sure, Patrick carried the ball 15 yards for the game's final touchdown 2 plays later. Final score, Alabama 28, Auburn 17. But the only number that mattered was 315.
By then, when he won that 315, he was sort of a superstar. Like he had surpassed being a football coach. He was now a luminary. And I guess he liked it okay, but deep down, I think he would like to just be a coach again.
He's the reason for the success, not the player. He'll say it was our success, but it was his. We did it all for him.
I think about all the players that played for him. We just happened to be there at that one game. But the 315 games goes all the way back, to the 50s, and what he was able to accomplish throughout that time. You felt like you were part of a family.
In every aspect of my life, it's influenced my life. So I'm a blessed man. I'm a man that had a chance to be a part of to experience playing for a legend and a great man.
Best thing ever happened, As I was still young, so it didn't really reflect on me what we just had accomplished, And now I look back on it, oh man, that was the best thing that ever happened.
And I always cherish that because I did it for the Bear. 315, they would say, and most valuable player, Jesse Vendros. You can't take that away from me, right? The greatest.
What was Coach Bryant's goal for all his players, not just including me? What his goal was at that particular point in time was to build men. And what he saw in me at that particular time was I was becoming the leader that he had set out to make me be.
28-17, Alabama leading over Auburn. I think that Pat Dye is just going to wrap it up. Alabama fans count things down to 5, 3, 2. Coach Paul Bryant wins number 315. And the Auburn team, the Alabama team, meeting in the middle of just a bedlam, a sea of confusion, but a history-making moment.
One of the officers just removed Coach Paul Bryant's houndstooth hat. They were afraid somebody would try to snatch it off his head this afternoon. And I don't know that he's going to get to meet Pat Dye or not. He's turning away and now walking toward the dressing room. There was just too much confusion there at midfield.
I say, and I'm sure this is true, that the young men on both sides who have played so valiantly today and such a tremendous effort on the part of both teams, they will never forget. And let me say one thing that David Housel said. Told me last night that I thought was a fine thing for me to say. He said, I was proud to have a hand in this game. If Auburn wins it, it'll be the greatest victory in our history. And of course, if Coach Bryant wins it, it's a history-making event. That's what it has been. Our congratulations, to put it mildly, to Coach Paul Bryant.